Welcome to Lawyer Boss Life.
Welcome to Lawyer Boss Life, the podcast where law firm owners learn to build profitable businesses and lead lives they love. I'm Chelsea Pagan, a law firm owner, entrepreneur, and toddler mom. I know it's possible to have an excellent income, work 40 hours a week or less, and still take time off because that's what I do.
And I'm Ali, law firm growth expert and founder of Law Firm Success Group. I've helped hundreds of attorneys scale their firms, gain freedom, and take back their time.
Today, we're talking about client onboarding. And Ole, you know I love this topic so much because having a smooth, dialed in onboarding process doesn't just make your clients feel taken care of, but, and I know from experience, it increases your revenue, eliminates chaos, and sets the entire case up for success because really that's your client's first experience with how you're going to manage your case.
Yeah, and if you think about what's going on in the mind of your client, they have just, signed the fee agreement. They have gone through this kind of hand-wringing situation where they may have been talking to other attorneys. They know it's going to be expensive, and so they're really nervous. And a really good onboarding process, it's kind of like that old saying goes, you never get another chance to make a first impression. It just sets everything up for success from the get-go. And if you think about the opposite, where it's not a smooth process, now they start having second thoughts, they start having a lot of anxiety and stress. And now as an attorney, you're now in the position of having to recover that whole experience for your client and for your firm. And that's a lot more work.
It is so much more work. And what we've realized personally in my law firm, I have a family law firm, as I've mentioned on this podcast, but it's a very emotional first step for people, whether they're angry, sad, or just having to kind of come to terms with what next steps they're going to have to take and the stress that's going to put on them. And so trying to get them to feel like we are going to guide them through that process on day one can just allow them to take a deep breath. And so we've been able to track how our onboarding process creates happier clients and a more profitable practice because these are clients who are commenting about how easy it felt, commenting about, the compassion our intake specialist gave them and showed them, on top of the fact that especially this time of year. So we're recording this right before the holidays, and it's really hard to get an appointment with an attorney, and unfortunately we're scheduling people out. And then we're having to say, and that's our first appointment. Please let us know, if that works for you. They'll go call around, realize either one, they didn't have as good of an experience because people have said that, or the wait time is just the same. And then they come back to us specifically because of how they were taken care of. So Alay, talk to me a little bit about how you work with your law firm owners to encourage them or help them set up an onboarding process that really is going to, help set them apart from other law firms.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I love doing this with my clients. What we do once we decide that this is a key initiative that they want to really focus on for the next year, we say, okay, great. Now let's get a blank piece of paper, or, if we're doing it on Zoom, a blank screen, and let's just script this out from the client's perspective. If you were a client, how would you want this process to go? What are the different steps? We go ahead and we map that out. We go back to it a couple of times because there's going to be little gaps and holes. And once we've got it fleshed out, then we can start the implementation. This first piece where you script it out and you write it down is so important. And the reason for that is once you have something written down, now it becomes kind of real and you can start to shoot for it and make it happen. The other thing it does is it brings to light maybe gaps in your thinking. So you might have seen this as an attorney entrepreneur. If you're thinking about some kind of business idea, it's in your head and it sounds great in your head. But then either when you go to implement it or you write it down, you realize there's all these little gaps and disconnects that are happening. And if you hadn't written it down, you wouldn't know about those gaps or disconnects until it actually starts to happen. So writing it down is a huge first step. Doesn't actually take that long. We can usually do it in less than an hour, and it sets everything up for a really good path forward.
So talk to me a little bit about some of those gaps and miscommunications that you see in the onboarding process, and how you can help your clients identify those and work through them.
One thing that does happen is, and this is at the almost the very beginning. At the end of the consultation, um, assuming the client has signed the fee agreement, and if they haven't signed the fee agreement at the end of the consultation, that's something you should take a look at. Um, but then telling them what to expect next. Like, it's really tempting to just, take that signed fee agreement, get the check, and like, okay, we're done. We'll be in touch. But highlighting to them what they're going to expect next, who's going to be contacting them, and when, and what we're going to be expecting as that next step really brings down their anxiety and stress and tension. The other thing that a lot of my clients like to do is they like to send some sort of a welcome email. Well, here's the gap: who's going to send it? And once we've identified that person, how are they going to know to send it? It sounds really, really small. And that's the challenge with these things. It's these little things that can get in the way. So you can be merely signing up clients, but maybe the person who's supposed to send it doesn't know how to send it, doesn't have a template, or most often wasn't even told that a new client's been onboarded. And so they don't have a trigger to send off that welcome email. And that's just one example. There's a bunch of those kinds of things that happen.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of piggyback off that because this is something my firm does exceptionally well. And a lot of that has to do with our intake specialist who has taken ownership of this process specifically for the reasons you're saying to set expectations for clients. But I'm not going to talk about what happens before the consult, but from consult forward, our clients never go without knowing what comes next. Meaning, I have the consult. They either want to retain on the spot or they say, "Hey, we want to think about it." No problem. I let my intake specialist know. She has a timeline for follow-up. She gets automated reminders to follow up if they haven't reached out to us. Once they retain, she sends a fee agreement and a link for payment. Once all of that is received, she sends an email. "Hey, we've received your fee agreement, your payment. Remember to send ID because we request copies of ID." In attached is our welcome packet, which tells you all about how to work with our firm and maximize communication. In the next day or so, you will be receiving an intro letter for first steps related specifically to your case. You'll receive that from the associate attorney. It lines out exactly what to expect so that the client's saying, "Oh, okay, so right now I need to do nothing. I'm waiting." It says in a day or two, I'm going to get another email with instructions for my specific case. And then and she also at the very end of it says, "And I need to schedule a 15-minute just intro check-in with the attorney now that you're retained. Here's her next availability." And that's it. It's like clockwork every time. And it increases the first conversation with clients, it increases their ability to be focused on that call because that stress has been reduced. So I will brag about this process every chance I get because I'm so lucky to have an intake specialist that understood the assignment very clearly of what we were trying to accomplish. And it wasn't difficult. Every firm, I invite law firm owners to say, "How would you want to be onboarded?" Do it yourself. Have you ever called a lawyer yourself? I have many lawyers in my practice, a business lawyer. We have actually we have multiple business lawyers, employment lawyer. And that experience I have learned from. So do you ever encourage any of your clients to kind of go through that exercise themselves and say, "How would you want to be taken care of?"
Yeah, that's usually where we start this whole process. Like, if you're a client coming into your firm, how would you like this experience to go if you're one of your clients? And
Mhm.
that's kind of how we start scripting all of this out. Just as an aside, attorney entrepreneurs, if Chelsea is stressing you out because you're thinking, "Oh my God, I don't have these automated reminders and I don't have an intake specialist and I don't always train my staff for the next
Mhm.
steps," and Chelsea has really gotten this button down. Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't just snap your fingers and do it perfectly overnight, right? This is something you've worked towards?
N Absolutely. We opened in 2018. This process was not dialed in until mid last year, 2024.
So, attorney entrepreneurs, give yourself some grace. It's
Yeah.
totally fine. You've got to start at the beginning. And as Chelsea is illustrating, as you work on it over time, as you improve it over time, you get the right people, you put in the right processes, it's going to become a game-changing differentiator that's going to set you apart from the competition. It may not happen overnight, but you would be surprised at how much of a difference some of these small changes can really make. You don't have to do it perfectly to get a huge return. But Chelsea, I love this idea about really kind of thinking about it from the perspective of your client and going through that process. And I also like your idea about thinking about how you've been treated by other attorneys. And
Mhm.
another group that is kind of falls into the same bucket is also your accountants and CPAs. It's very similar, and you can think about the experience you've had with your accountant or your CPA or bookkeeper as well. The professional services, it lines up really, really well. And what typically ends up happening is, oh my gosh, you start thinking, man, the responsiveness is terrible. I don't know what's happening next. The follow through is hit or miss. Oftentimes I have to reach back out and ping them as to what the status is and what to expect next. Like it's all just kind of feels like there's someone back there pulling levers and pushing buttons, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, instead of it being a well-oiled machine like you have built, Chelsea. And that translates to the client's opinion about the credibility of your work. And this is crazy, right? Clients will infer based on how they're treated as clients, nothing to do with the legal aspects of their case or the kind of counsel they're being provided, but they will judge your ability as a lawyer based on the client experience they're getting. And I know that doesn't make necessarily any sense, but that is absolutely what happens. If you treat them well, they're going to think that you're a great attorney. If you treat them poorly, they're going to think that you're not. And the nice thing is that issue, how they're being treated, is totally up to you to define.
Yeah, and many lawyers and law firm owners might know this or should know this, but one of the number one bar complaints against lawyers is miscommunication or lack of communication. It's the number one bar complaint. And so if you can't figure out a way to set the tone and communicate with your client from day one and set them up for success so that they have something to rely on, then that's going to translate not only into possible malpractice claims, but also the client thinking, if you can't manage just onboarding me, getting my information, and scheduling a meeting, how are you going to manage my legal case? Those things are related. Now, thankfully, I don't have to be the one to do that onboarding. From step one, I have somebody to do it for me, but that doesn't mean I'm not involved. And so law firm owners really need to kind of walk through the process. And if you're just starting out, one thing that I found helpful with our intake specialist, and I don't know if you recommend this, Alay, so you can let me know, is I went through like a role play, like let's see what it looks like. Let's see what that timeline is. Obviously, it was a little, controlled, but still just to kind of see what that experience is early on when we did this so that I could see what it looks like. So that may be something that could be helpful if you're just trying to weed through it. And this goes to kind of the next topic, and you touched on this a little bit, but this is how you can figure out those gaps that we were talking about. If you do the role play and kind of walk through it, but it's figuring out the handoffs from I want to retain to what happens next, the checkpoints, the automation of it all. And so when somebody's just starting off, when you want them to write this down, where do you start off with, okay, what's step one? What's step two? Then how do we follow up? Do you have a guideline or do you have suggestions for anyone looking to build a really solid onboarding process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of where I start is the kind of practice they want to have in terms of, boy, what's the right way to position this? In terms of not the quality, but maybe the prestige associated with the practice.
Mhm.
And this is a point that I really want to make with the attorney entrepreneurs that are listening. When we think about a great client experience, you know, I'm going to give the analogy of a hotel. We immediately jump to a Crown Plaza type of experience, or a Ritz Carlton type of experience, a 5-star experience.
Mhm.
But one of the best experiences that people get in the hotel industry is actually through Motel 6
Mm.
because it's cheap. The clients know what they're going to get, and they get exactly that, right? They get a clean room, a clean bed, a clean shower, and cable TV and internet, and that's good. And so you don't have to deliver like a 5-star experience if you're not trying to command 5-star prices. So for those of you that are doing, work that's more volume driven, the focus there is going to be on reducing the friction points, making it as easy for your clients to interact with your firm as possible, being predictable, um, and being setting it up in a scalable way so it doesn't disrupt your margins.
Mm.
If you're more of a boutique practice, which Chelsea, you and Emily are rapidly growing into, you're gonna want that high touch experience. But even with that, it can be really simple. And I'll give you a quick example. So I went through this exercise again last year for my coaching firm, and we did exactly what I said, because one of the things I love to do is practice what I preach. So took a piece of paper, sketched it all out, and then kind of went through the process details. I don't have automation around mine. Mine's an Excel spreadsheet. It's got timelines on it. When a new client comes in, I tell my onboarding specialist to go ahead and kick this off. And just like over the lifetime of a case, there's certain checkpoints. Same thing with me over the lifetime of the coaching relationship. There's certain checkpoints, and this doesn't have to be a very expensive thing. Well, we've got it sketched out, and I have my daughter, who is a sophomore in high school, doing this for me on a part-time basis. It's a great experience for her, and my clients, I think, are very appreciative when they get that gift basket, or they get that note, or they get that book in the mail. They really enjoy it. So yeah, that's where I start. To answer your question, Chelsea, is what kind of a firm do you have? Because that's going to really drive the
Yeah.
client experience that you want to create. And then the next step is, okay, let's talk about what the trigger is for your client experience. Is it signing the fee agreement, or is it something else? Once we identify that trigger, that kicks off the process. It gets much easier to figure everything else out.
Yeah. And you highlighted something really important about, the specific firm's needs and whether it's volume, high touch. I've seen a lot of law firms, and I see this maybe a lot in like probate and estate planning, where they just have like a calendar where you can go click on and schedule your first meeting with the attorney that way, all yourself. And a lot of people love that. That doesn't make sense for us with conflict checks and the way that that all navigates. It's just not right for us. But it's so easy. People are like, "Oh, I don't even have to call anyone," because, people don't necessarily always like to get on the phone. I can just enter in a time that works for me, and then I'm just gonna show up, and then we take it from there. That works for a lot of people. So, again, when I highlight the process I have a family law firm where that kind of contact is really necessary. And I want to be able to say, okay, well, even if that person doesn't hire me because either one, I'm not the right fit, or they're looking for something different, or maybe I can keep them from having to hire a lawyer because I'm encouraging them to maybe try this themselves or go to mediation. The increased likelihood that they're going to leave me a review just because of that consultation, that initial contact is high. And that matters, right? Even if they never hire me, I've got a couple Google reviews, where people are just like, didn't end up needing this lawyer, but enjoyed the process. And we have a follow-up process for that, of course, because it's all part of it. And so those are just a couple examples in which I'm showing it can dramatically increase the experience of the client, but also how it comes back to you as a law firm owner. And so it's not always thinking about just the experience of the new client, but also just how your firm is received by every person who calls your office. Same goes with opposing counsels too. I think sometimes this onboarding process, if you have that first experience, you're also going to have opposing counsels and vendors that call you that really enjoy that process, and it just goes to your reputation as a whole.
Yeah, I
I
still
don't-
remember this to this day. I walked into an immigration law firm to meet the owner, and she had, on her in her lobby on the coffee table, she had a little beverage menu, like non-alcoholic beverages that you could get, and it was such a cute,
Oh,
like
yeah.
sweet little touch. Like I remember it to this day, and that was probably 10 years ago. Yeah, so those little things make a huge difference. That can leave a big impression with people.
I mean, I love that kind of little touch stuff. It's not expensive, it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's that attention to detail that shows people that you care about the business, and which means you care about them. Doing a good job for your clients translates into, how that process is going to play out for them. I mean, I can't talk about having a solid onboarding process, whatever that looks like, knowing the process, documenting it, and being able to repeat it time and time again so that your firm, your employees know what to expect and that process is down is so crucial. So for help strengthening your onboarding process and mapping your firm's client's journey, you can book a strategy call on our website at lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. If this episode sparked new ideas, please like, subscribe, and share it with a lawyer who might need it. We love hearing how you're building your lawyer boss life.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. and leave us a review in the comments.